Pay attention to the exact second your drive starts to drop. There is a pattern you've lived through more times than you want to admit. You start strong, your head is clear, your focus feels sharp, your intent feels clean. Then a few days later, nothing looks wrong on the outside, but something loosens on the inside. Your body still shows up, but your mind stops leading. Your discipline turns into strain, and your results stall again. That is the real pain. You can reach the right internal state, but you can't hold it. Notice how concrete this is in real life. Projects that begin with momentum and then cool off. Decisions you make with conviction and then abandon. Money that comes in and somehow never stays. A routine that works for a week and then dissolves. It's not random. It's not bad luck. It's a mental pattern that keeps resetting you back to the same baseline. Napoleon Hill taught that lasting results do not come from emotional peaks. They come from the ability to sustain a mental state that matches the goal. Hill kept hammering the same principle from different angles. Desire is not enough. Organized persistence is what produces outcomes, and here is what most people don't want to face. Persistence is not brute force. It's continuous inner alignment. Most people try to hold momentum using emotion, hype, motivation, a new video, a new quote, a new burst of excitement, and it fails for the same reason every time. Emotion fluctuates. The state that lasts does not come from excitement. It comes from clarity. When your mind knows exactly what it's doing, it doesn't need to be pumped up to keep going. The Bible confirms this in a way that cuts through the noise. Proverbs 23:7. As he thinks within himself, so he is. It doesn't say as he feels. It says as he thinks. What you sustain mentally is what you become practically. Now observe something important without dramatizing it. The drive almost nobody can sustain is not the drive to do more. It's the drive to stop sabotaging when the initial excitement wears off. That is the moment the pattern reveals itself. When nobody is watching, when there is no external push, when it's just you and the way your mind talks to you. Napoleon Hill described the greatest enemy of achievement as a lack of mental consistency. Hill called it an undisciplined mind. A mind that understands but doesn't remain. A mind that decides but doesn't sustain. And if this feels personal, it's because it is personal. You don't need more information. You need a mind that holds its line. Before going further, notice the simple truth. Your results do not collapse all at once. They leak, small daily leaks, a conversation that shifts your mood, a headline that hijacks your attention, a comparison that turns your focus into doubt. A minor disappointment that you interpret as a sign. Each time your mind abandons the state you chose, you lose momentum. The leak looks small, but the accumulation is what ruins consistency. This is why the first move is not work harder. The first move is to see the leak at the exact moment it starts. Before continuing, write this in the comments right now. I will sustain what I start. Do not skip this. That sentence is not a compliment. It's a contract. A public line you draw with yourself. Now observe how most people live in cycles. Start, stop, build, drop, decide, retreat. That isn't personality. That's training. From early on, the mind gets conditioned to react to the environment instead of directing itself. And a reactive mind cannot sustain momentum because it depends on what happens outside. Napoleon Hill taught that a person who cannot direct his own mind ends up directed by other people's agendas, other people's fears, other people's noise. Hill didn't say this poetically. Hill said it as a practical law. Control of attention determines control of outcomes. And the Bible backs that practical law in a direct way. Philippians 4:6. Do not be anxious about anything. Anxiety is not just a feeling, it's a mental behavior. It's your mind jumping ahead, trying to control what it cannot control, abandoning a stable inner position. Anxiety is the break in sustained focus. Now watch this next part closely, because it's where people lie to themselves. They tell themselves they lost motivation. That's not what happened. What happened is your mind started negotiating. Notice the negotiation language. Not today. Tomorrow I'll reset. This isn't the right time. I'll do it when I feel ready. That voice is not wisdom. It's the old pattern trying to regain control. Arguing with it wastes time. Fighting it wastes energy. The only useful response is non-obedience. The moment your mind learns that negotiation doesn't change the decision, the negotiation weakens. Napoleon Hill taught that habit is built when action follows decision, not when action follows mood. Hill was ruthless about this point. Moods change, decisions must govern. The habit of persistence is not created by intensity. It's created by repetition under ordinary conditions. Jesus pointed to the same internal law when he said, Mark 11:24, "Whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." Notice what that requires. Not a one-day belief, a sustained inner stance. Most people believe for a moment, then hand the mind back to fear, doubt, and urgency. The stance collapses and they call it life happening. It's not life, it's mental inconsistency. So here is the practical training, stated plainly, without turning this into a lecture. You stop trying to feel your way into consistency. You start protecting the mental state you chose like it's a non-negotiable asset. Notice how that plays out in real time. Your day begins with clarity, then the world starts pulling. Someone's opinion, a message, a random distraction, a small inconvenience. If your mind follows every pull, you lose the state. If your mind observes the pull and returns, you keep the state. Over time, the return becomes automatic. That is what real discipline looks like, returning without drama. Napoleon Hill said the mind works like a magnet. It attracts what it habitually holds, not what it occasionally wants. Hill didn't mean magic. Hill meant behavior and direction. Intermittent desire produces intermittent action. Sustained thought produces sustained direction. Sustained direction produces results. Now observe the difference between people who truly progress and people who stay stuck. People who progress do not look emotionally hyped. They look steady. They don't live on peaks. They live on firmness. That is trained, not gifted. And this is where you tighten your standard. You stop asking, how do I get motivated? And you start asking, where am I leaking my mind? Notice the leak patterns. One of the biggest is over-explaining. The mind starts narrating, justifying, analyzing every fluctuation. That narration feels productive, but it drains attention. A directed mind does not need a constant internal speech. It needs a clear internal rule. When the mind drifts, it returns. Napoleon Hill emphasized that definiteness of purpose is power because it reduces decision fatigue. When you keep redeciding the same thing, you bleed mental fuel. When the decision is settled, the mind has fewer doors to open. It stops wandering. It starts building. Here's the insight most people miss. Discipline is not what exhausts you. Indiscipline exhausts you. The mental back and forth exhausts you. The daily debate exhausts you. The constant restarting exhausts you. A settled decision is lighter than endless negotiation. If this is landing, notice why. Because you've been blaming the wrong problem. You thought the problem was lack of effort. The problem is lack of sustained inner direction. Hit like right now if you recognize this pattern in yourself. This tells the algorithm. This message needs to reach people who are stuck in the same loop. That like isn't for approval. It's distribution. People trapped in this pattern don't need more noise. They need a clear mirror. Now bring this back to what you do today. You choose the internal state you're going to maintain, and you stop treating it like a suggestion. You stop entertaining every thought like it deserves a meeting. You stop reopening decisions because your mood changed. You return again and again, without self-attack, without self-pity, without self-explanation. Napoleon Hill taught that the subconscious begins to cooperate when it sees consistency. Until then, it tests you, it pushes, it tempts you with distraction, it offers comfort, it offers delay. That is not a sign to stop. It's a sign you are training something real. The Bible puts it in a sentence that is uncomfortable for a reactive mind. James 1:8. A double-minded person is unstable in all his ways. Double-minded is not an insult. It's a diagnosis. It's trying to hold a decision and a doubt at the same time. That split is what drains you. So notice the choice in front of you. A reactive mind keeps asking the world what to do. A directed mind decides and maintains, and the maintenance is not dramatic. It's quiet. It's the same return every time. The same refusal to negotiate. The same alignment with what you already chose when you were clear. Over time, the return becomes your default. The mind becomes less noisy. The body becomes less tense. Results become less fragile. That is how a confused mind becomes a directed mind, not by a one-time breakthrough, but by a standard you keep, even on ordinary days, especially on ordinary days when the old pattern expects you to drift again. Notice the exact moment you abandon the inner state you decided to sustain. Once you see this clearly, observe something deeper and less comfortable. Momentum does not collapse because of a big mistake. It collapses through small daily deviations that go unnoticed. Tiny mental concessions, quiet internal justifications, short just for today decisions. This is how drive dissolves without noise, without drama, without an obvious cause you can point to later. Watch how your mind behaves when things start to stabilize, when the routine begins to work, when focus sharpens, when results stop feeling chaotic. That is precisely when a strange impulse appears. Distraction, restlessness, doubt, the urge to change something that isn't broken, not because something is wrong, but because your mind was trained to survive in chaos, not to maintain direction. Napoleon Hill taught that the human mind tends to abandon what requires consistency and chase what offers immediate relief. He described this as an unconscious escape from purpose. It is not laziness, it is conditioning. An untrained mind confuses comfort with safety and ends up sabotaging the very structure that could stabilize life. Observe your mental routine honestly. How many times do you start the day clear, only to find yourself reacting to the environment a few hours later? A message shifts your mood. A headline hijacks your attention. Someone's comment alters your posture. Each reaction like this is a silent loss of sustained drive. Nothing dramatic happens, but something leaks. Most people think losing drive means feeling tired. That's not it. Losing drive means losing direction. It's when your mind stops leading and starts being led. It's when you respond to life instead of operating from an internal decision. The Bible states this without softening it. James 1:8. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Double-minded does not mean weak emotion, it means a divided mind. Trying to hold decision and doubt at the same time. That division drains momentum. Napoleon Hill reinforced the same law from another angle. No consistent result comes from a divided mind. Clarity demands exclusivity. Either you sustain the mental state aligned with what you decided, or you let the environment decide for you. There is no neutral zone. Before continuing, write this in the comments right now. I will stop negotiating with my mind. Do not skip this. This is not motivation. It is a line you draw. Notice how negotiating with your mind feels harmless. I'll come back later. This isn't the right moment. I just need a short break. The problem is not the pause. The problem is who is in control. The moment negotiation starts, leadership has already shifted. Jesus addressed this principle directly when he said, Matthew 6:24, "No one can serve two masters." This applies to money, purpose, and your internal state. Either you govern your mind or it obeys old automatic impulses. Here is the distinction that changes everything. Sustained drive does not require intensity. It requires fidelity. Fidelity to the inner state you chose. Fidelity to the decision made when you were clear, not when you are tired, distracted, or emotionally reactive. Napoleon Hill taught that true mental discipline is continuing to act from the decision even when the feeling changes. Feelings are unstable. Decisions create structure. Structure sustains drive. Observe how people who progress consistently do not spend their days trying to get motivated. They don't need to convince themselves every morning. They already decided. And when the mind realizes the decision is non-negotiable, it stops wasting energy on resistance. Most people are exhausted not because they do too much, but because they think too much without direction. Dispersed thinking burns fuel. Organized thinking conserves it. This is a basic mental law, and Hill repeated it in different forms throughout his work. The Bible confirms it again with precision. Isaiah 26:3. You will keep in perfect peace the one whose purpose is firm. Peace here is not softness. It is internal stability. It is drive that does not leak. Now, bring this into daily practice in a concrete way. Sustaining drive starts with a simple, ongoing decision. Do not mentally debate what has already been decided in a moment of clarity. When your mind tries to reopen the discussion, you do not need to win the argument. You need to close the meeting. Notice how the mind creates stories to justify loss of focus, fatigue, lack of time, lack of recognition. These are narratives. Sustained drive is not built by dismantling every narrative. It is built by refusing the invitation to enter them. Napoleon Hill taught that the mind strengthens when it observes coherence between decision and action. Every time you act in alignment with your decision, even without enthusiasm, you save future energy. Every time you give in, you train the mind to drain itself. Here is the insight most people avoid. Discipline does not exhaust you. Indiscipline does. The constant mental back and forth exhausts you. Repeated doubt exhausts you. Endless internal negotiation exhausts you. When the decision is firm, energy stabilizes. If this is clear now, hit the like button. That like tells the algorithm this message has real value and needs to reach people trapped in this invisible mental wear and tear. Notice how from this point on, the training becomes quiet. No big gestures, no dramatic changes, small choices repeated with awareness. Not reacting automatically, holding the inner state even when the environment tries to pull you away. Jesus did not chase validation. He maintained direction. He walked, knowing who he was and where he was going. That is sustained drive, not emotional effort but clear identity. Napoleon Hill emphasized that mental identity comes before any external achievement. When you know who you are internally, behavior organizes itself without struggle. Drive stops being something you chase and becomes something you protect. Notice how, at this stage, the mind begins to quiet down, not because problems disappear, but because there is less room for interference, less noise, more direction. Sustaining drive means learning not to respond to everything, not to enter every internal conversation, not to explain yourself to yourself all the time. It means remaining. Observe this over the next hours and days. Each time you feel the drop, do not dramatize it. Simply return to the state you chose to maintain. No guilt, no internal speech. Just return. This is how the mind stops wasting energy and starts operating with steady firmness. Notice precisely when your mind tries to escape the responsibility of sustaining direction. There comes a point where your mind does not collapse from fatigue, lack of resources, or real difficulty. It collapses because sustaining direction starts to demand maturity. And maturity is more threatening than effort. Look at this without emotion. While you are trying, learning, starting, there is a comfortable excuse available. When things begin to work, that excuse disappears. That is when the mind looks for an exit. Pay attention to how this happens quietly. It does not arrive as a clear thought of quitting. It shows up as dispersion, elegant procrastination, endless adjustments. Just one more analysis. Just one more change. It looks intelligent, but it is escape. Escape from sustaining the inner position of someone who has already decided. Napoleon Hill taught that many people fail at the exact moment results start becoming possible. He explained that the subconscious enters conflict when the old identity senses it is about to be replaced. The mind tries to protect what is familiar, even if that familiar state is limiting. The sabotage is not loud, it is subtle and rationalized. Observe whether this is exactly what happens with you. When consistency starts to form, when the pattern begins to shift, a new kind of hesitation appears, disguised as caution. This is not wisdom. It is fear of sustaining a higher internal standard. Fear of becoming responsible for what happens next. The Bible explains this mechanism with precision. Galatians 6:9. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap. The weariness mentioned here is not physical. It is mental. It is the fatigue of holding the same internal posture without abandoning the field before the harvest. Napoleon Hill reinforced this from another angle. Most people do not fail because they are incapable. They fail because they abandon the correct mental state shortly before results consolidate. Hill referred to this as invisible quitting. The person stays busy, stays occupied, but has already left internally. Before moving on, write this in the comments right now. I will sustain until it stabilizes. This is not about strength. It is about remaining. Notice how sustaining direction starts to require internal silence. Less explanation, less justification, less internal dialogue. The mind wants to talk, argue, negotiate. Sustained drive requires less conversation and more continuity. Talking to yourself feels productive, but it often weakens resolve. Also notice how the environment tests you when it senses change. People question you, situations shift, small conflicts appear. This is not a sign of error, it is a field adjustment. Whenever someone sustains a new internal pattern, the external environment reacts. Napoleon Hill taught that every shift in mental state creates proportional external resistance. This is law, not coincidence. The common mistake is interpreting resistance as a signal to stop. It is not. It is a signal that something is reorganizing. Those who do not understand this retreat, those who understand it hold their ground. Jesus demonstrated this clearly throughout his path. He did not interrupt his direction to answer every provocation. He stayed focused on what needed to be done. When he said, Luke 9:62, "No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God," he was describing sustained inner direction. Looking back fractures the internal state. Now observe a practical point that changes everything. Momentum is lost when you over-explain yourself to yourself. Every explanation creates space for doubt. Every justification consumes attention. A directed mind does not explain. It executes. Napoleon Hill taught that repetition of action aligned with decision creates an automatic mental state. At first, it requires awareness. Later, it requires only maintenance. Most people never reach that stage because they abandon the pattern before the mind learns it. The Bible reinforces this with clarity. Romans 12:2. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Renewal is not an event. It is a repeated process, conscious insistence until the new pattern becomes natural. Notice how you tend to behave when something becomes predictable. A mind addicted to stimulation interprets predictability as boredom, but predictability is what creates stability. Stability creates long-term drive. Long-term drive creates prosperity. Chaos feels exciting, but it never compounds. Napoleon Hill taught that wealth does not come from emotional chaos, but from sustained mental organization. He repeated this principle under different terms: clarity, definite purpose, persistence. All of them converge on the same requirement: remain in the same internal state long enough for it to work. Here is the direct application to your day. When you notice your mind seeking distraction without necessity, do not fight it. Simply do not follow it. Do not argue. Do not negotiate. Continue. Sustained drive grows when the mind understands there will be no bargaining. Observe how, when you stop negotiating, the mind quiets faster. At first it resists, then it yields. Napoleon Hill described this as habit training. The mind learns through pattern, not through speeches. There is a common error that needs correction now, believing that sustaining drive means being rigid. It does not. It means being coherent. Rigidity fights the environment. Coherence ignores what is irrelevant. Coherence saves energy. Jesus did not live in tension. He lived in direction. These are not the same. Tension burns energy. Direction preserves it. If this distinction just became clear, hit the like button now. That like helps this message reach people who are exhausting themselves by confusing effort with direction. Notice how the focus shifts from this point forward. It is no longer about doing more. It is about stopping the habit of abandoning what has already been decided. It is not about intensity. It is about clean continuity. Napoleon Hill taught that the mind needs a fixed axis. When everything revolves around that axis, movement becomes organized. When there is no axis, everything feels like effort. Energy gets lost in constant adjustments. Ask yourself quietly, without drama, what is the axis you decided to sustain? You do not need to answer in words. You need to answer with consistent action. Notice how people who maintain momentum over time do not spend their lives explaining themselves. They repeat. They repeat posture. They repeat behavior. They repeat decision. This is not limitation. It is power. The Bible points to this principle directly. Ecclesiastes 7:8. Better is the end of a thing than its beginning. The beginning is excitement. The end is constancy. Few reach the end because few sustain the middle. Napoleon Hill emphasized that the middle is where most people disappear because there is no novelty and no immediate reward. Only conscious repetition exists there. That is where real drive is built. Observe how you behave when there is no validation, when there is no immediate feedback, when there is no applause. That is the true training ground of the mind. Sustaining direction there changes everything. Do not wait to feel different. Act the same. The feeling follows as a consequence of a stabilized pattern. Reversing this order is the classic mistake that drains momentum. Jesus did not wait to feel courage before acting. He acted from who he knew he was. Identity precedes emotion. Sustained drive is born from assumed identity. Napoleon Hill taught that when the subconscious accepts an identity, it begins supplying automatic energy to sustain it. but that only happens after sufficient repetition. Before that, conscious decision is required. Over the next days, notice every attempt your mind makes to exit. Do not criticize, do not judge, simply do not follow. Sustaining drive is often nothing more than staying seated in your own internal position. And when this begins to happen, something shifts quietly. Less wear, less noise, more firmness, more clarity, not because life became easier, but because the mind stopped sabotaging its own axis. This is the point where momentum stops oscillating and starts stabilizing, and almost no one reaches it, because almost no one stays long enough. Notice clearly when your mind tries to confuse continuity with stagnation. There is a specific moment when the mind creates a dangerous illusion, the feeling that repetition is wasted time. This is one of the oldest tricks of the automatic pattern. Consistency gets renamed as boredom. Stability gets labeled as sameness. Repetition gets framed as delay. And the moment you accept that story, momentum starts to drop even though nothing external has actually changed. Observe this carefully. You don't stop because something failed. You stop because something started working in a predictable way. And predictability scares a mind trained on chaos. Chaos feels alive. Urgency feels important. Constant novelty feels like progress. Sustaining direction means walking through that discomfort without obeying the impulse to change, just to feel something different. Napoleon Hill taught that an untrained mind confuses movement with progress. Hill warned that many people stay busy for years and never advance because they change direction the moment repetition demands inner loyalty. For Hill, conscious repetition is what turns a decision into a habit and a habit into identity. Without that process, everything stays at the level of attempt. Watch how your mind reacts when you decide to hold the same pattern long enough. It starts asking questions that sound intelligent. Is this really it? Isn't there something better? Am I missing opportunities? These questions rarely appear when things are failing. They appear precisely when momentum starts to stabilize. They are not signs of clarity. They are tests. The Bible describes this mechanism without softness. Hebrews 10:36. You need perseverance so that after you have done the will of God, you may receive what was promised. Perseverance here is not stubbornness. It is staying with what was already decided clearly. The promise comes after perseverance, not before it. Napoleon Hill reinforced this same law repeatedly. The subconscious only begins to cooperate fully when it sees enough consistency to trust the chosen direction. Before that, it resists, it tests, it pulls you back toward old patterns. That resistance is not failure. It is evidence that something new is being installed. Before continuing, write this in the comments right now. I do not abandon what I have already decided. Do not skip this. This is not for the video. It is for your mind. Notice how abandoning decisions usually comes wrapped in elegant language. It doesn't look like quitting. It looks like strategic adjustment, necessary pause, re-evaluation. Not every pause is escape, but every escape disguises itself as a pause. The difference is internal. If the pause preserves direction, it strengthens. If it dissolves decision, it drains momentum. Jesus illustrated this clearly in the parable of the sower. Some seeds fail not because they lack potential, but because they lack depth. The root does not grow because permanence does not happen. That is unsustained drive. Matthew 13:21 describes this exactly. It starts well, but cannot endure the process. Napoleon Hill taught that mental depth only forms when the mind stays on the same axis long enough. Constantly changing focus keeps you on the surface. Surface living burns energy. Depth conserves it. Also observe, how the mind tries to measure progress only by immediate visible results. When results delay, restlessness appears. But sustained momentum does not depend on constant external signals. It depends on coherence between what was decided and what is being practiced, even when evidence has not appeared yet. The Bible confirms this principle directly. 2 Corinthians 5:7. We walk by faith, not by sight. This is not spiritual denial of reality. It is internal consistency. It means sustaining the inner position before the outer proof exists, instead of abandoning it because the eyes haven't confirmed it yet. Napoleon Hill taught that the correct mental habit always begins invisibly. It forms before any external evidence shows up. Those who demand proof before sustaining the mental state never arrive anywhere. Those who sustain first eventually produce proof. Here is the practical application that must be clear now. Sustaining direction requires drastically reducing daily re-decisions. Every time you decide again, you spend energy. A well-made decision saves future energy. A decision reopened every day consumes energy and produces nothing. Observe how often you decide again what was already decided. You wake up and decide again. You work and decide again. You continue and decide again. That constant redecision is exhausting. People who sustain momentum do not live deciding. They live executing decisions already made. Napoleon Hill emphasized that the power of purpose lies in clear definition and firm maintenance. A purpose that is constantly redefined loses force. Power lives in continuity. Jesus demonstrated this practically. He did not adjust direction with every resistance he encountered. He continued, not out of stubbornness, but out of clarity. Clarity reduces mental energy waste. If this is becoming clear right now, hit the like button. That like helps this message reach people who are exhausted from deciding too much and sustaining too little. Notice how the training deepens from here. This is no longer about starting. It is about remaining without drama, remaining when the mind asks for novelty, remaining when the environment does not validate, remaining when results have not appeared yet. Napoleon Hill said most people do not fail at the beginning, they fail in the middle. The middle offers no excitement. It offers repetition, and repetition demands mental maturity. The Bible reinforces this with precision. James 1:4, let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete. Maturity here is not age, it is the capacity to sustain. Notice how, when you stop abandoning, something aligns quietly. Less internal conflict, less mental dialogue, more stability. Not because everything is solved, but because you stopped leaving your own internal position. Sustaining momentum is not forcing yourself to feel confident. It is acting as someone who already decided to trust. The feeling follows later. It always follows later. Jesus did not ask the environment if conditions were favorable. He acted from a clear identity. Sustained identity produces automatic drive. Napoleon Hill taught that once mental identity stabilizes, effort drops dramatically. Before that point, everything feels heavy. After that point, everything feels natural. Only those who remain long enough cross that transition. Observe how the mind tries to rush this process. It wants fast results, fast feelings, fast confirmation. Sustained drive ignores urgency. It operates at the pace of consolidation, not excitement. And this is where almost everyone quits, not because they can't continue, but because they refuse to remain without external stimulation. Remaining requires internal authority that does not depend on applause. Watch this in the coming days. When the urge to change without real necessity appears, do not react, remain. When the mind asks for something new, just to feel something, do not follow. Continue. This is how momentum stops oscillating, deepens, organizes itself, and begins to sustain real results. And this is why almost no one reaches this point, because almost no one stays long enough.